All right. Hey there. Welcome, I guess, to Backers Live. Justin Fox, founder of Backers. I have Jody Vetrell and Beata Jarava from Breathe to Go, or the Novel Tech Group, Inc., joined me today. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? You guys are currently live with an offering on the Backers platform, currently raising funds for Breathe to Go on the Backers platform. Why don't we, I'll start with you, Jody. Why don't you introduce yourself as you're to my, depending on how you're looking at it, right? Jody, go ahead. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Justin. Thanks again for putting this together. You're always so supportive. My name is Jody Vetrell, and I'm a co-founder and COO of Breathe to Go. And we are making a portable wellness device for respiratory issues. And I'm here with my my business partner, Beata.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Beata, then that's to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a CEO of Novel Tech Corporation, and our branding name is Breathe to Go. We are more of a research and development company, and it actually was born during the pandemic when there were no solution around the world, and we decided to give you some.
Perfect. That's sort of, we'll dive right in. I'll jump to you, Beata. Why don't you tell us what Breathe to Go is, sort of on a superficial level, and kind of what it does and how it supports individuals.
So the Breathe to Go, the name we decided to do is literally to make you a device that is going to support your lungs, the wellness of your lungs. The struggles that people have had in the last 4 or 5 years during the pandemic were pretty much not having ideal solutions for recovering from asthma, allergies, bronchitis, COPD, and at this point, long COVID recovery. Yet knowing that the nature brings us certain magics and certain, I don't want to call it magic, but resources and sources that we are not often utilizing, we want to bring it to a surface, to telling you that something like that exists in the world. And that's why we kind of decided during the 4 or 5 years that I've evolved from a wellness center that I acquired during the pandemic for the purposes to recovering people. We've decided over the years that it would be great for people to have a just portable handheld device that you can carry anywhere around the world, means from the plane to the cruise ships, to facilities, larger events such as weddings and etc. So you can take it with you and you can support your lungs to recover. Back in 4 years ago, I've acquired a wellness, and that wellness was designed to help people with recovering and optimizing the lungs. As the time went, and I've seen hundreds and thousands of people by now and their testimonials, over 500 testimonials and 5-star their and videos shooted, and also what they told us and what we have seen, we can't no longer hold it as a secret. We need to take it out there to a public. People need to know something like that exists, and it's on the basis of dry soul therapy. We used a special rooms, soul rooms, and those soul rooms were designed very particularly being an active based on pharmaceutically graded salt that you happen to breathe. There's a special device called halogenator that grinds the salt to very tiny microns, particles between 3 to 5 microns small, that you happen to breathe inside the room, that you're there for about 30 minutes. The whole ecosystem inside the room is trying to mimic the old-fashioned way like we had it back then, the natural caves in, let's see, in Europe. It's very well known. Some of the Polish salt caves, some of the Austrian, Czechoslovakians, they have in many cases people went there to recover from the lungs and respiratory issues. So the salt has been designed, salt rooms were designed to mimic that kind of environment. Knowing the fact what salt does, and if it's used the right one, we have a pharmaceutically graded one from a laboratory here local in British Columbia. If you know the fact that it's antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal, you then know that it can really lower the inflammation in the lungs, and it opens up the airway of the lungs, enabling the pathway of oxygen to engage and absorb the mucus and fungus and infection from your lungs and respiratory. Hopefully that kind of helped you in understanding.
Yeah. Perfect. So salt therapy, obviously, there's a lot of benefits, as you mentioned. You've kind of evolved from opening up a clinic to now having the Breathe to Go, which is essentially a portable salt therapy device. And I'm going to bring in actually another member of the management team with Breathe to Go, John Banks, who's joined us as well. I want to introduce John. He's kind of jumping in there. Hey, John, how's it going? Welcome to the show here.
Thank you, and great to be here. Nice,
Awesome,
good to see you.
Perfect. So we'll just quickly, Beata was just giving a quick intro on the Breathe to Go device and sort of salt therapy. You've joined the team recently. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe the role that you're playing in the rollout, if you will, of the Breathe to Go device and the Novel Tech Group Inc.
Sure, thanks. So my background, I've been working in the life sciences space for almost 30 years. I've worked with some of the big names around the industry, people like AstraZeneca, GlaxoSmithKline, and many others. My role here is really to support Beata and Jody in the commercialization of Breathe to Go. We've got a great product. It is definitely ahead of the field. You know, there are competitors, but they're a significantly greater cost. They don't have the same level of performance as our product. And we have plans for the product and for the salts that go into the product that will allow the business to grow, develop, and also to drive towards an exit strategy, which is, of course, important for ourselves and investors and also eventually the buyers of the company. So there's some great opportunities around the product and really quite an innovative and market leading initiative, you know.
Perfect. And you're joining us from across the pond, so I appreciate you staying up arguably a little later maybe than normal. I know we've been on very early morning calls. We're West Coast, you're in the UK, so appreciate you taking the time. So Jody, why don't we jump to you, talk a little bit about what's going on with the product. I know there's some things that you guys have built around sort of the marketing and the education of the product. Tell us a little bit about that and sort of your involvement in Breathe to Go and kind of how things are moving from your perspective. Obviously, each one of you plays an integral part of the team, so a role in the team.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Basically, dry salt halotherapy is something that is not quite like widely known, and salt caves and that kind of stuff in many parts of the world. It is something that is these salt caves exist in various regions of the world. One being Eastern Europe, which is what Beata grew up with. And so, although most people can relate to salt in the concept of, oh yeah, I gurgle with salt when I have a sore throat, or go to the ocean and the healing and all of that kind of stuff, and obviously the ocean air we breathe, it's very very nice to always go and experience that. But people don't really understand it like as a therapy in this context unless they've come across salt, some sort of a salt room in a clinic like what Beata has had over the last 4 or 5 years, and experience themselves. There's not that many salt caves because they're very customized with HVAC and very expensive to build and maintain, because salt is obviously got a corrosive it can be corrosive on things and hard on HVAC systems and things like that. Right. So what we did to really support people with the education is we wrote a book. We put together a book with a whole bunch of clinical data, stuff that's been medically published, papers out of universities and etc. to support the data. And we wrote a book called The Respiratory Revolution, Unlocking the Secrets of Salt Therapy for Healthy Lungs. And we talk about we educate on the origins of salt in this type of context, and what halotherapy is, and why people are using it and having success with it. What does it do as a preventative? How can it help support various conditions like COPD, cystic fibrosis, people who want to quit smoking? It can be a really great tool for people who want to quit smoking and really accelerate getting that gunk out of their lungs. And obviously allergies, asthma, kids, Beata's got kids as young as, babies as young as like 16 days old, coming into into her salt room and having, great success with that, and just, compiling some of those testimonials to really support, so that you have, here are the clinical studies on it. Here are the, the testimonials, and those testimonials are directly from, Beata's, salt clinic, right? So the nice thing is that, you can have this book to educate yourself on how it can help in various degrees, and also help your family, your children, and how to use it, from a preventative means, and to accompany the device so you can learn more about it.
Perfect. So just to clarify, so Beata currently has a clinic. Now we were there actually. There's maybe some footage that I might intersperse in with this, where we were there in the salt room. We actually sort of conducted our meeting, if you will, or part thereof. So you have the salt room in the clinic in Surrey, BC. The device is a portable version of that to allow people to experience salt therapy wherever they go, as you said, on a plane, in a hotel room, wherever they, in their office, in their home. And obviously the benefits of salt therapy, as you've said, are sort of explored in the book that you've written, The Respiratory Revolution. So let's talk a little bit about the business. Obviously, we're talking about the fact that you have an offering on the Backers platform. You're raising capital. You've built the product to a certain point. You have arguably the version 1, if you will, ready to put out. Talk a little bit about the process getting there, a little bit about the business. Maybe, I think you've mentioned sort of FDA or Health Canada approvals and patents and things of that nature. I don't know who wants to take this question, but who wants to sort of discuss maybe the evolution of where the product to get it to where it is now, and kind of where you see the product going in the future. Maybe that might be a question to start with. And then another question, somebody else maybe can talk the business aspect. So maybe we can break it up. I don't know if Jody or Beata want to maybe talk about the getting it there, and maybe John, you can talk a little bit about the business and the financial aspect of it. Do we want to break that up? Maybe I'll throw it to Beata. Beata, why don't you talk a little bit about the product evolution to date?
So briefly, I can start, and of course we have John in here for a reason. We are very blessed to have him in our team. He's our kind of a backbone for the strategies and how we want to deploy this. But yes, we have started it as of the device has actually had 4 different prototypes that we went through. Many engineering companies being engaged. We started the first initial engineer who actually has developed and patented over 50 patents, and he also actually designed the whole engineering for one of the phone devices, BlackBerry, which you guys are familiar with. So we also had quite intensive team player as well. Her background is in branding. We have acquired a strong branding teammate as well. She has worked with Procter & Gamble as well as Lancome and other larger corporations. So we have a big player in our team. quantum practitioners. We have compounding pharmacists in our team, and gentlemen who have contributed to Nobel Prize in Canada for glutathione precursor. And list goes on and on and on. We were very fortunate to put the combined force, and that was the first intention, was to create something for humanity. Since there were no solutions, we as a team went together on those bases. And of course, for the investors, it's a very viable investment opportunity, which John will be speaking about. We have hit patent pending. There will be multiple patents still coming in the near future. We have it trademarked. We have done a lot of due diligence in respect of the IP, intellectual property, the assets, and the corporation setup. So, John, you can tell us a little bit more in a strategic way, if you may.
Oh, I think we're on mute.
Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, so when we look at the launch of the product, we can see initially 3 customer groups that we can target. We can do direct to consumer, we can do private label, and eventually, and I don't mean long-term eventually, focusing also on the medical space. And they're very different, with some very interesting opportunities in each of those being slightly different. The consumer market has great potential. Jody has already talked about the number of people coming along with asthma, COPD, etc., to Beata's clinic. And we've got direct evidence of the testimonials that she's already mentioned there. So we can target that market, and we can go direct to consumer. There's 2 parts to that product sale. First of all, we've got the device sale. And secondly, we have a particular grade of salt that we supply with our product. So that would continue being supplied on a subscription basis to the consumers. And so that then gives us a recurring revenue model as well, which is obviously has some attraction. Private label, we can provide products particularly labeled for businesses, whether they're in the hospitality or leisure industry, cruise ships, airlines, etc., branded for them. It has some of those same benefits, slightly different in terms of device pricing and things. But again, we have the recurring model from the particular grades of salts. And then lastly, you get to the medical. And this is where it gets really interesting, because if we consider how the consumers in the medical space still want further support with asthma. Nocturnal asthma is a big issue. For example, kids getting asthma attacks at night is a problem. Then there is a huge opportunity for Breathe2Go to target and support those types of issues. And it's not just nocturnal asthma, it's asthma across the board. It also, as Jody has also mentioned, COPD, etc. So there's a huge market there, which has a real need and demand that we can service. And in doing that, we create actually some interest, because you start to step onto the toes of some of the larger pharmaceutical organizations, because we're now doing an asthma-like product. And of course, that is of interest to them, I think, is probably the best way of putting it. And that then drives our exit strategy.
Perfect. So obviously, I mean, just to talk about exit strategies, those are watching, typically IPO or acquisition are kind of your 2 main sort of exits in an organization like this. Obviously, from an investment standpoint, maybe dividends or other kinds of cash flow to the investor in the shorter term, but those are typically your exits. So there's definitely an exit strategy in place in the short to medium, long term, different sort of options as things play out. So let's talk. I mean, obviously, we're talking about a potential investment in the Novel Tech Group to the viewers, and the Breathe2Go device. And obviously, I know we've had conversations, Beata and I and Jody and I, offline or off air, about other products maybe coming into the Novel Tech Group, and this might be a the first of many and different options. But let's just touch on the Breathe to Go device specifically. Tell us a little bit about maybe, and I mean, we don't necessarily have to give away the sync here, but talk a little bit about maybe cost of production. Typical cost is what it's going to cost to a consumer. Let's say, obviously, prices will vary. When you start getting into wholesale, maybe into the medical or branded, private label. But talk a little bit about that. Where you're at right now, valuation, sort of, and maybe justify that a little bit to an investor, and maybe talk a little bit about projections as to where the business could go, obviously based on the marketplace, the Canadian market, US market, global market, and this specific kind of health market, if you will, around salt therapy and respiratory issues. Again, I don't know if that maybe goes to Beata or back to John, or kind of a combination, or Jody even. Who wants to put up your hand and answer that question? Because the investors want to know, right? If somebody's looking to invest, these are some of the questions maybe that they'd like to know. Obviously, a lot of them are discussed in the deck and the offering document, but I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts, or sort of just put it into a concise format.
Well, in our case, we'll give a baton to John, if I may.
Okay.
And it's not like we don't know what we're talking about, but it's so well spoken and strategized from his perspective. Then we are pretty much led by his
guidance, right?
So far we're doing very well, so we don't have a reason not to. So
take the lead then, John. Take the baton then.
Take the win as well.
There you go. Not to throw you on the spot, but give us. I mean, obviously, a lot of this is in the offering document and the investor deck, but just kind of from your perspective, give us kind of arguably sort of the nuts and bolts of arguably the financials, if you will, the product, cost of goods sold, kind of margins, profitability, long term maybe projections, if you will.
Sure. I'll try and do my best on this one. So if we look at cost of product, we are looking at product cost of less than $100 per device, and generally speaking, probably less than $75 per device. Our retail price, direct to consumer, with salt provided, would mean that for a consumer, they would probably break even if they, and I'm drawing on particular evidence here, so it may not be the same in all provinces and states across North America, but we know that one user of asthma Ventolins, inhalers, was paying $167 a month for the device. So on that basis, it would be less than 6 months if they were to use our device as a replacement. They would be reducing their costs in less than 6 months if they're paying $167 a month. So from a consumer perspective, it makes financial sense if it's a direct replacement. So cost of product, consumer, we can then drive revenues off of that, which would allow us on an annualized basis to be making in the order of about $700 per consumer, probably a little bit less. And that's going to be, so that's the first year. That revenue then drops in second or subsequent years because they only need to buy salt. They don't need to buy a device. And at that point, we get, while the revenue drops, we get it recurring. And of course, that's for each of the customers, the consumers that use it. There's another benefit here, which we haven't touched on, which is about carbon benefits. It's not well known that each of those Ventolin inhalers is equivalent approximately to 23 kilograms of carbon dioxide, which is a significant amount. I mean, that's like driving 150, 200 miles for one of those. And if you're replacing that every month, that's a quarter of a metric ton of carbon dioxide every year per consumer. So that's very significant. So we've got green benefit, we've got good costs, we got good revenue, because once they get past the device, the salt is an ongoing revenue generator for us. And then we've got those other markets, and each of those markets are going to be priced differently. So I have to be careful, and I don't want to disclose all the pricing on some of this because some of that's pretty confidential.
Of course.
But I think it gives you a sense of sort of the cost of device, the cost of the revenue that we get, carbon dioxide benefit that we have, the green footprint that it brings. It's an innovative product that really makes a difference.
Perfect. So, and just to clarify, so I mean, obviously, this is on the offering document. It's sort of public knowledge right now. The valuation you're going out is currently at a $12.5 million valuation based on future projected revenues and sales. Obviously, these are projected, but what kind of sales volumes can you see in the next 1, 2, 3 years kind of thing, and the growth potential for the business as a whole?
So I think we have to be a little bit careful because of forward-looking statements.
Obviously.
But,
that's why I'm leaving it to you. I'm not going to make any of them.
Yeah, I think that if we were to look at just Canada, that 12 million is probably about right. I would expect that to be more if we looked across the whole of North America, would be my expectation and opinion.
Yeah, and
as the value of the company. Sorry, just to clarify, as the value of the company. But I was looking at more like sales volumes. I know, and this is kind of, it's alluded to in some of the investor deck. It sort of talks about projected volumes. So maybe roughly, and not to cut you off, apologize, Beata, but how many units do you think will be sold, let's say, roughly in year one? I mean, that's kind of a simple metric. Are we talking 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000? Like what is the market size for this, do you see in, let's say, North America?
So look across, go on, Beata. Do you want to?
Sorry, I'm trying to keep it sort of like in
no.
that from an investor standpoint, right? If somebody is looking to invest. Yeah.
So picture this. Canada, if we just take 2% of Canadian population who has some respiratory issues, which there's more, but we were very conservative. If we just consider 2% of Canadian population that we would target in the next 2-3 years, ideally up to 3 years towards our exit, that's 771,000 people. That would generate revenue of around 300 million on revenue from sales. Could we, and are we going to be going and targeting India? Absolutely. Why? Because we have a leverage, we have contacts, we have a distribution channels. We already opened up some of the distribution opportunities, over 400 distribution channels across Canada with some of the sources. Perhaps we are negotiating. We are also working with Europeans. We are working with China's market and as well as India market. So it's as fast as we can go and as fast as we have the funding. For the revenue source, we are trying and we will be aiming, and correct me, John and Jody, we would like to make about 10,000 units this year, and increasing going to the next year between 30 to 50,000 units next year, and going in a third year to 100,000 or so units. Is that aligning with our team?
Yeah, that's kind of the question that I was asking. Obviously, it's projections. It's meant to be kind of a rough kind of guide as to where you're going.
Also, and say we will be what John was saying is we will be having the wellness division, and we also might have the medical division, which now that's going to be activating more resources and more clientele from the perspective of the medical source. So we might be tripling, quadrupling as we go. We are ready for it. We are also activating some of the manufacturing facility locally in Canada. Initially, we will be shifting towards to Europe. Potentially, we'll be manufacturing in India as well.
Perfect. So, I mean, I don't want to throw these are the not the curveball questions, but It's obviously questions that people who are looking to invest in a company want to kind of understand what is the opportunity that they're investing in. There's the health benefits, but from a business standpoint, what are they investing in? So sort of use of capital. You mentioned kind of marketing and development and further development. One of the questions I kind of alluded to as well, maybe Jody, you can touch on quickly, is sort of the FDA or Health Canada, kind of like the trajectory there. Maybe you can touch on where you're at now, where you hope to get to over the next period of time.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So in a nutshell, we have had a consult with a consultant who focuses on doing the applications for FDA and Health Canada. So that those conversations have begun. Obviously, there's costs associated with that, so some of this funding that we're looking for is going to be going through that process. For the actual consumer wellness device, we're not, we want to move forward with bringing that to market, where we wouldn't need necessarily to have, Health Canada classification for that. But definitely for the medical device, we will be walking down that path. And that opens us up into many different other markets too, because Health Canada is a gold standard regulatory body for stuff like this, and so it does help roll over into some of the other countries, like India, for example. India has a very, very big respiratory health issue because of the level of pollution. So there's lots of opportunity there. And so, the goal is to really roll out this product in Canada, and then move it also into the United States, and then move it into India and more of a global market.
Perfect. So let's talk about, we're going to wrap it up here. I know we had a half an hour. We've just gone over a little bit. Hopefully we can wrap it up quickly, but let's talk a little bit about, obviously they can find you on Backers. You're currently raising funds on the Backers platform. So go to backers.ca, check them out. Breathe to Go or the Novel Tech Group Inc. Is the offering there. But why don't you tell us a little bit about where the product is currently? Tell us a little bit about, maybe quickly, you mentioned briefly use of funds, and then kind of where they can find you guys. Obviously social media, maybe social channels, how they can connect with you guys. I don't know, maybe Beata, do you want to sort of take that, I guess, the last little second here?
Not a problem. So first of all is we need you as much you guys need us. So whoever is listening right now, is we want to bring this device to your home. We want to bring it to your grandma. We want to bring it to your child who has conditions for the respiratory. We have ability. You would be investing in our team. We are highly experienced and with a lot of licensing and expertise behind us in a higher level of execution and product. And with this device, we are right now at a stage of finalizing a last prototype that is going to be ready for the production. That's why we need the funding. The funding will go to concluding some of the lawyers, some of the certifications that we are going through right now, and for some of the engineering that has to be finalized and concluded, and we'll be most likely going and funding it towards the production. So is there any other questions that you had, Jack?
Yeah, just kind of where can they find you, I guess. Where can they find you? Okay. Obviously, yeah, where are you guys? You're obviously live on Backers Raising, but where can they find you guys elsewhere?
So right now we are working on a website, and so you will soon hear from us. There will be a website, you will be able to reach to us. Otherwise, on the Backers, there's a contact and an email information. You can reach to us if you have any questions or want to get some of the pitch decks or further informations. But social media right now, only information you can find about the soul therapies are at least under the Bioimmune Integrative Wellness. You can see some of the testimonials, what people are saying. There's also a YouTube channel for the Bioimmune Integrative Wellness. You can see that as well. So that's kind of what we are working on. The social media is phase 2 after engineering is concluded.
Perfect. And they can also find all of you on LinkedIn personally as well, and which you'll be tagged on here. So if you have questions, definitely look into that. So I want to thank you guys, Jody Vetterl, Beata Jarava, and John Banks from Breathe to Go, and the Novel Tech Group Inc. Again, check them out on the Backers platform, currently raising there. And if you have any questions, reach out to them. Some of their contact details are on there. John, Beata, Jody, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks.
Awesome. So everyone else, appreciate you joining us, Backers Live. Check it out. There'll be some links at the bottom of this video where you can check out the link to potentially invest if this is something that is of interest to you, and reach out to them directly and follow the journey as they build this sort of revolutionary product, right? The respiratory revolution. So will the book be available? Is there a link maybe at some point that will be available as well?
Yeah, the book and the product will be launched at the same time.
Perfect. Awesome. So stay tuned, everyone. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Cheers.